The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a kilometer in every direction. Floating platforms held representatives from over 200 species, their strange bodies and stranger voices filling the air with a constant hum of alien languages. Light from the dying red star outside poured through massive windows, casting everything in shades of blood and rust. Ambassador Kong Jisoo stood alone on the human platform. She was a small woman with gray streaks in her black hair, wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. For 30 years she had stood in this exact spot. For 30 years she had smiled and bowed and accepted whatever scraps the Council threw to humanity. Today would be different. High Arbiter Velith floated at the center of the chamber on his golden throne. His body was tall and thin, covered in pale scales that shifted colors when he spoke. He had led the Council for over a century, and he looked at humans the way a person might look at insects crawling across their floor. "The matter is settled," Velith announced, his voice echoing through translation devices across the chamber. By a vote of 173 to 27, the Council has approved the partition agreement. Earth's solar system will be divided among the Vorn Dominion, the Hegemony Coalition, and the Bright Collective. Jisoo felt her hand shake, not from fear. From rage, the human species will be granted relocation rights, Velith continued, sounding bored. Mining colonies in the outer sectors have been prepared. The transition will begin in 1 standard year. This is, of course, for humanity's own protection. You are too weak to defend your territory. We are doing you a kindness. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Emissary Torak, the Hegemony's senior diplomat, made a sound that his species used to show amusement. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he looked down at Jisoo. Perhaps the human ambassador wishes to thank the Council for its generosity, Torak suggested. As they have thanked us so many times before? More laughter. Jisoo remembered all the other times she had stood here. The trade agreement that gave aliens control of Earth's rare minerals for almost nothing. The protection treaty that forced humanity to pay tribute to 3 different empires. The border adjustment that cost them to colony worlds. Every time she had smiled. Every time she had bowed. Every time she had told herself that patience would eventually earn humanity respect. She had been a fool. "Ambassador Kong," Velith said, his voice carrying a note of impatience, "the Council awaits your response. Do you accept these terms on behalf of your species?" Jisoo looked around the chamber. 200 species, most of them watching with contempt or amusement or simple indifference. Humanity was nothing to them. A minor species, weak, easily controlled, easily ignored. She reached up and removed her diplomatic badge. The metal was warm from 30 years pressed against her chest. She held it for a moment, feeling its weight, remembering everything it represented. Then she dropped it. The badge fell slowly in the station's low gravity, tumbling end over end until it struck the platform floor with a small, clear sound. In the sudden silence, that sound seemed very loud. "Ambassador?" Velith leaned forward, confusion crossing his scaled face. "What is the meaning of this?" Jisoo looked directly at him. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "Diplomacy is over. Prepare." She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the stunned silence. Behind her, she heard voices rising, confused, angry, dismissive. "Is this some kind of human joke?" Torak demanded. "Prepare for what? What can they possibly do?" Jisoo did not turn around. She did not explain. She simply walked out of the chamber, leaving her badge on the floor behind her. In the control room of the human diplomatic vessel, her aide was waiting. Park Min-ho was young, barely 30 years old, with the eager look of someone who still believed in peaceful solutions. That look faded when he saw Jisoo's face. "Ambassador?" "What happened?" "What did they decide?" "They decided to take everything," Jisoo said. She sat down at the communication console and began entering codes she had memorized years ago but never expected to use. "And I decided we are done asking permission to exist." "What are you doing?" "Sending a message to Earth. Authorization code Omega 7. She finished entering the sequence and pressed transmit. It's done. Minho's face went pale. Omega 7. But that's the end of diplomacy. The beginning of something else. Jisoo stood and looked out the viewport at the massive council station. For 30 years, I believed that if we were patient enough, polite enough, reasonable enough, they would eventually treat us fairly. I was wrong. They will never respect us. They will only fear us. But we can't fight them all. We're outnumbered 1,000 to 1, Jisoo smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They think that too. They're wrong about a lot of things. Back in the council chamber, the initial shock was wearing off. Velith had regained his composure and was addressing the assembly. The human ambassador seems to have suffered some kind of breakdown, he announced. This changes nothing. The partition agreement will proceed as planned. Earth's fleet consists of fewer than 50 combat vessels. They pose no threat to anyone. Torak made his laughing sound again. Perhaps they will write us an angry letter. Humans are very good at words. Not so good at anything else. The chamber filled with alien laughter once more. Commander Drenna of the Vorn Dominion was the only one who did not join in. The old warrior had fought many wars, and something about the human ambassador's eyes bothered her. We should send scouts to Earth, Drina said. To observe their response, Beleth waved a dismissive hand. If you wish to waste resources on watching insects panic, you may do so. This session is concluded. No one noticed that every human ship in the sector had already changed course. No one noticed that Earth had stopped responding to all communication. No one noticed that humanity had just done something it had never done before. In 30 years of contact with the galaxy, they had stopped talking, and the silence was only beginning. 3 months passed. The galaxy forgot about humanity. Trade ships approached Earth expecting to collect tribute. They found nothing. No response to communication. No beacon signals. No ships coming or going. The blue planet hung in space like a closed eye, giving nothing away. They are probably too ashamed to answer, Emissary Torak told the council when questioned. Let them hide. In 9 months, we will take what is ours, whether they open their doors or not. But on Earth. Behind that wall of silence, something was happening. Admiral Yoon Hannah stood on the observation deck of the flagship. Unyielding dawn. She was 60 years old. With short gray hair and a face marked by decades of military service, through the viewport, she could see dozens of warships moving into formation. Not the 50 ships the galaxy believed Earth possessed. Hundreds of ships. Ships hidden for years in asteroid fields, in the thick clouds of gas giants, in underground bases on the moon. Final count? She asked. Captain Park Do-yeon checked his tablet. He was tall and lean, with the quiet confidence of a man who had trained his whole life for a moment that was finally arriving. 347 combat vessels. 62 support ships. Full ammunition and supplies for 18 months of continuous operation. Hannah nodded slowly. And the new weapons? Dr. Beek says the prototypes are ready. All ships have been upgraded. For 20 years, while diplomats smiled and bowed, the military had been preparing. Every piece of alien technology that came to Earth had been studied, taken apart, and rebuilt. Dr. Beek Sunwoo, the greatest engineer humanity had ever produced, had spent his entire career finding weaknesses in alien designs and exploiting them. The galaxy thought humans were primitive. They were about to learn otherwise. Do-yeon followed Hannah as she walked through the gated corridors of the unyielding dawn. Crew members saluted as they passed. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone was ready. I reviewed the target list, Do-yeon said. We're not attacking military bases. No, we're attacking economic centers. Trade routes. Banking stations. Hannah stopped walking and turned to face him. We cannot win a direct war against the entire galaxy. We are outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. If we try to fight them ship to ship, we will lose. But we don't need to destroy them. We need to make the cost of fighting us so high that they will choose peace on our terms. Economic warfare. The hegemony cares about money more than anything else. The Vorn Dominion needs trade to fuel their military. The other species follow whoever seems strongest. Anna resumed walking. When their economies start collapsing, they will turn on each other. When they turn on each other, they will forget about us. And when they finally remember, they will be ready to negotiate properly. In the strategy room, Dr. Beek Sunwoo was waiting with Lieutenant Cho Yuna. Sunwoo was small and thin, with thick glasses and the distracted look of someone whose mind was always solving 3 problems at once. Yuna was his opposite, young, athletic, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The plan is ready," Sunwoo said, pulling up a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared at 17 different locations. Simultaneous strikes. All targets hit within the same hour. By the time they understand what is happening, it will be too late to respond. Yuna pointed to one of the red dots. "This is the hegemony's central banking station. We're not going to destroy it. We're going to capture it. If we control their currency reserves, we control 40% of galactic trade." Hannah studied the map. "Casualties? Theirs or ours?" Sunwoo asked. "Both. Enemy casualties will be minimal if they surrender quickly." "Our casualties," Sunwoo hesitated. "The assault teams know the risks. They volunteered anyway." Doyeon thought about the volunteers. Men and women who had grown up hearing stories of alien contempt, of unfair treaties, of humanity being treated like animals. They weren't fighting for glory or conquest. They were fighting because they were tired of being afraid. He walked to the memorial wall at the back of the strategy room. Photographs and names covered the surface humans who had died during the diplomatic era. Accidents, they were called. Unfortunate incidents. A diplomat whose shuttle mysteriously lost power. A trade envoy who fell from a balcony. A scientist whose lab exploded without explanation. One name caught his eye. Park Soyeon, his sister. She had been a junior diplomat, 23 years old, assigned to negotiate water rights for a colony world. Her shuttle had collided with an asteroid. The aliens expressed their condolences and took the water rights anyway. Doyen touched her name. "We tried it your way," he whispered. "Now we try ours." Hannah joined him at the wall. She too had lost people. Everyone in the fleet had lost someone. "This will change everything," she said quietly. "Once we attack, there is no going back. Humanity will either earn its place in the galaxy or be destroyed trying. Are you ready for that?" Doyen looked at his sister's photograph one last time. Then he turned to face the Admiral. "I've been ready my whole life." Hannah nodded. She walked to the communication console and opened a channel to every ship in the fleet. "All vessels, this is Admiral Yoon. In 6 hours, we will begin Operation Thunder. For 30 years, we asked the galaxy for respect. They answered with contempt. For 30 years, we sought peace through patience. They answered with exploitation. Today, we stop asking. Today, we stop waiting. Today, we show them what humanity can do when it stops being polite." She paused, looking at the faces of her crew. Pride, determination, fear. Yes, but not enough fear to stop them. The galaxy thinks we are weak. They are wrong. The galaxy thinks we are afraid. They are wrong. The galaxy thinks they know us. They are about to learn how wrong they are. She closed the channel. The fleet began moving toward their targets. The silence was about to break. The attacks began at exactly the same moment across 17 different star systems. The Vorn Dominion's largest shipyard was the first to fall. Commander Drenna received the emergency transmission while eating her morning meal. By the time she reached the command center, the shipyard was gone. 40 years of construction, 300 warships in various stages of completion, all of it reduced to expanding clouds of debris and cooling metal. "How?" Drenna demanded, staring at the reports. "Our defenses should have detected any approaching fleet." "They didn't approach," her aide reported, his voice shaking. "They were already here, hiding, waiting. Our scouts passed within kilometers of them and saw nothing." Drenna felt something she had not felt in decades of warfare. Fear? Not. Of dying, she had accepted that possibility long ago. Fear of facing an enemy she did not understand. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. A hegemony fuel depot exploded. A council communication hub went silent. Trade ships vanished without distress signals. And at the center of hegemony space, the central banking station suddenly found itself surrounded by human warships. Lieutenant Choyuna led the assault team onto the station. Her soldiers moved quickly and efficiently, securing corridors and taking prisoners without unnecessary violence. The hegemony guards, trained to fight the predictable tactics of civilized species, had no idea how to respond to humans who fought like wild animals. They're everywhere. One guard screamed into his communicator before Yuna's team took him down. They don't stop. They don't negotiate. They just keep coming. Within 2 hours, the banking station was under human control. Yuna found herself standing in the main vault, surrounded by servers containing 40% of the galaxy's currency reserves. She opened a channel to the unyielding dawn. 0 casualties on our side. Minimal casualties on theirs. They surrendered faster than expected. Good work, Lieutenant. Hold position and await further orders. On the council station, High Arbiter Velith was experiencing something close to panic. Emergency reports flooded in faster than his staff could process them. The holographic display showed red warning lights spreading across the map like a disease. This is impossible, he kept saying. They have 50 ships. How can 50 ships do this? Emissary Torak burst into the chamber, his 4 eyes wide with terror. They've frozen our accounts. Every hegemony government account. We can't pay our military. We can't buy supplies. Our entire economy is collapsing. No, then send ships to retake the banking station. We can't. There are blockades. Human ships appeared from nowhere around 3 of our core systems. If we move our fleet, we leave our homeworld undefended. Velith turned to Commander Drenna, who had joined the emergency session via hologram. You have the largest military in the council. Attack them. Drenna's scarred face was grim. My shipyard is destroyed. I have pulled my remaining fleet back to defensive positions. Until I understand how they are hiding their ships, I will not send my people to die in ambushes. You are afraid of humans? Torak demanded. Of insects. I am afraid of enemies I cannot see, Drenna replied. Perhaps you should be too. The council chamber descended into chaos. Species that had been allies for centuries began blaming each other for the disaster. Ancient tensions, held in check by prosperity and mutual benefit, started breaking through the surface. Meanwhile, Captain Park Doyan guided the unyielding dawn through the wreckage of a Vorn supply convoy. His tactics made no sense to the alien commanders trying to track him. He attacked when he should have retreated. He retreated when he should have attacked. He sacrificed ships without hesitation when it served his goals, treating them as weapons rather than precious resources. They fight like they have nothing to lose, a captured Vorn officer told his interrogators. They fight like they want to die. How do you defeat an enemy that does not fear death? The interrogator had no answer. 3 weeks into the war, Yuna was captured during a mission to disable a hegemony weapons factory. Enemy soldiers dragged her into an interrogation room. Bloody and exhausted, but still smiling, a hegemony admiral stood before her. Trying to understand the creature that had caused his people so much damage. Tell me your strategy, he demanded. Tell me how you are hiding your ships. Tell me where the next attack will come. Yuna laughed, spitting blood onto the floor. You really don't understand, do you? Understand what? You spent centuries playing politics, making deals, stabbing each other in the back with smiles on your faces. You forgot what real war looks like. She leaned forward against her restraints. We spent centuries fighting each other. World wars. Civil wars. Wars over religion, territory, resources, ideas. We killed millions of our own people learning how to fight. And now, you've given us a common enemy that is supposed to frighten me. It should. Because everything you're seeing now, this is us being careful. This is us trying not to kill too many of you. Imagine what happens if we stop caring about that. The Admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then he left the room without another word. 6 weeks into the war, the galaxy was burning. Not literally, humanity had been careful to avoid civilian targets and unnecessary destruction. But the economic systems that held everything together were collapsing. Trade routes were blocked. Currency had become worthless. Species that depended on imports were running out of food and fuel. And in the center of it all, humanity kept fighting. They lost ships. They lost soldiers. They lost battles. But they never stopped. They never asked for peace. They never showed any sign of giving up. For the first time in galactic history, the Council understood something that humanity had always known. War was not about who was strongest. War was about who was willing to sacrifice the most. And humanity, it seemed, was willing to sacrifice everything. The neutral station hung in empty space, far from any star or planet. It had been built centuries ago for exactly this purpose, a place where enemies could meet without fear of ambush. Now it hosted the most important negotiation in galactic history. High Arbiter Velith had come personally. This fact alone showed how desperate the Council had become. The leader of 200 species, traveling to beg insects for peace, the humiliation burned in his chest, but he had no choice. The alternative was watching his civilization collapse. Admiral Yunhana arrived with a small escort. She wore her dress uniform, metals gleaming under the station's harsh lights. Her face revealed nothing. Behind her stood former Ambassador Kong Jisoo and Dr. Beek Sunwoo. They were not here to negotiate. They were here to witness. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Velith began, forcing politeness into his voice. "The Council recognizes that certain mistakes were made in our previous dealings with humanity. We are prepared to make amends." Hannah said nothing. She simply waited. Velith continued, growing uncomfortable with the silence. "We are offering full sovereignty over your solar system. All previous treaties are voided. All tribute obligations are canceled. Earth will be recognized as an independent power with full rights under galactic law." Still nothing. Sweating now, Velith pulled out a data tablet. "Additionally, we are prepared to offer reparations. 10 trillion credits payable over 50 years. Access to all trade routes without tariffs. Preferred status in council deliberations." And he paused, as if the next words caused him physical pain. "A permanent seat on the council itself. Full membership. Equal voting rights with every other species." Emissary Torak, who had accompanied Velith, despite his terror, added quickly, "This is more than any species has ever been offered. More than we offered the Vorn when they joined the Council. More than no." A single word from Hannah cut through Torak's rambling. He fell silent, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion. "No," Velith repeated. "You refuse?" "I refuse." But Veloth struggled to understand. "This is everything. This is more than everything. What more could you possibly want?" Hannah turned to Jisoo. The former ambassador stepped forward, her gray hair pulled back, her eyes cold and steady. "For 30 years I stood in your council chamber," Jisoo said. "For 30 years I asked for exactly what you are offering now. Fair treatment, respect, a place at the table. Every time you laughed. Every time you offered us scraps and expected gratitude. Every time you reminded us that we were weak and you were strong." She picked up the data tablet containing the peace offer and examined it briefly before setting it back down. "Now you are weak and we are strong. Now you come offering everything we ever wanted. And we are supposed to accept? We are supposed to pretend the last 30 years did not happen. We are supposed to trust that you will honor these agreements when you honored nothing before?" Velith spread his hands in a gesture of surrender. "What choice do you have? You cannot fight the entire galaxy forever. Eventually you will run out of ships. Eventually you will run out of soldiers. Accept peace now while you still can." "You misunderstand our position," Hannah said, speaking for the first time since her refusal. "We are not fighting to win. We are fighting to teach." "Teach? Teach what?" Dr. Beek Sunwoo answered, his quiet voice filling the chamber. "We have studied your history. For 10,000 years, the same pattern repeats. A new species joins the galaxy. They are exploited until they become strong enough to exploit others. Then they do the same thing to the next new species. The cycle never ends. The powerful always take from the weak because there is never any consequence. He adjusted his glasses and continued. We are the consequence. We are proving that there is a cost to treating others as less than yourselves. Not because we want revenge, though we do, but because the galaxy needs to learn that this behavior will no longer be tolerated. Velith was beginning to understand, and the understanding filled him with dread. You want to make an example of us? Yes. Even though we are offering you everything? Especially because you are offering us everything. Jisoo stepped closer to the High Arbiter. Every species in the galaxy is watching this negotiation. If we accept your offer, they will learn that attacking weak species is acceptable as long as you give back what you took when you start losing. The lesson will be meaningless, and if you refuse, they will learn that some species would rather burn the galaxy than accept peace without justice. They will learn that cruelty has consequences that cannot be bought off. They will learn to think very carefully before treating another species the way you treated us. Velith sat heavily in his chair. He had prepared for many possibilities, demands, counteroffers. He had not prepared for an enemy that did not want anything he could give. What happens now? He asked, sounding exhausted. Do we keep fighting until everyone is dead? Hannah shook her head. The war continues until we are satisfied that the lesson has been learned. We will not conquer your worlds. We will not enslave your people. We will simply keep applying pressure until the galaxy changes. New rules. Enforced by us. No species can be partitioned without unanimous consent. Trade agreements must be fair to both parties. Exploitation through treaties will be treated as an act of war. And any species that violates these rules will face the same thing you are facing now. Torek finally found his voice. You want to be the galaxy's police? We want to be the galaxy's memory, Jisoo replied. Every time a powerful species looks at a weaker one and considers taking advantage, we want them to remember this moment. We want them to remember what happened when the Council tried it with humanity. We want them to be afraid. Velith looked at the humans standing before him. Small, weak, short-lived creatures. Barely a century ago, they had not even left their own planet. Now they were reshaping galactic civilization through sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. He asked, How long until you are satisfied? That depends on you, Hannah answered. Accept our terms. Implement the new rules. Show the galaxy that you have changed. The faster you do this, the faster the war ends. She turned and walked toward the exit. Jisoo and Sunwoo followed. At the door, Hannah paused and looked back at the broken leader of 200 species. You asked what we want. This is it. We want you to remember. Every time you look at a weaker species and think about what you could take from them, we want you to remember this moment. We want you to remember what humanity did when we stopped being patient. And we want you to be afraid of what we might do if you make us teach this lesson again. She left. The door closed behind her. Velith sat alone in the silent chamber for a long time, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. 2 years had passed since the war began. The galaxy was different now. The great chamber of the Galactic Council looked the same as always, floating platforms. Alien representatives, light pouring through massive windows. But everything had changed. The way species spoke to each other, the way they voted, the way they looked at the small platform where the human delegation sat. Admiral Park. Doyen, promoted after Yoon Hannah retired, stood beside Ambassador Kong Jisoo. She had returned to diplomacy, but not the old kind. No more smiling and bowing and accepting scraps. Now, when she spoke, the chamber fell silent. The proposal is simple, Jisoo announced, her voice carrying to every platform. The Bright Collective wishes to adjust their border with the newly contacted Drell species. Under the old rules, they would simply take what they wanted. Under the new rules, they must negotiate fairly. The Bright Collective's representatives shifted nervously. We have negotiated. The Drell have nothing we want in trade. They are too weak to defend their territory. What else can we do? You can offer them fair value for the territory. You can accept that some borders cannot be moved. You can treat them as equals. Jesu's voice hardened. Or you can take what you want and see what happens. Everyone in the chamber knew what would happen. The human fleet still existed. Hidden bases still operated. The soldiers who had burned the galaxy's economy were still ready to do it again. The Bright Collective withdrew their proposal. Later, after the session ended, Do-Yan walked with Jisoo through the station corridors. Other species moved aside as they passed, not with the old contempt, with respect or maybe fear. It was hard to tell the difference sometimes. Do you think they really understand? Do-Yan asked. Or are they just afraid? Bochizu replied. Fear will keep them in line for now. Understanding will take generations. But we have time, and they know we are watching. Dr. Baek Sunwoo met them in the human diplomatic quarters. He had published his document, a complete record of every injustice committed against humanity during the diplomatic era. Every broken treaty, every stolen resource, every diplomat who died in convenient accidents. The document was now required reading in schools across the galaxy. The Vorn Dominion has requested a military exchange program, Sunwoo reported. They want to learn our tactics, our hiding techniques, our willingness to sacrifice. Tell them no, Do-Yan said immediately. I already did. But the request itself is interesting. Goddardrena respects us now. She was the only one who was afraid of us from the beginning. Perhaps she could be a useful ally. Jisoo nodded thoughtfully. Arrange a private meeting. It's not about military exchange, about shared interests. The Vorn remember what it was like to be weak before they became strong. Perhaps they can help other species remember too. A message arrived from Earth. Lieutenant Choyuna was recovering well from her captivity. Her interrogation had become famous across the galaxy, the human who laughed at her captors and asked if they understood what they had woken up. She had become a symbol of human determination. She had also received 17 marriage proposals from aliens who found her terrifying and fascinating. She declined all of them. That evening, Do-Yan stood alone on the observation deck, watching ships move through the void. Alien ships, human ships, all following the new rules. 2 years ago, those ships would have ignored Earth entirely. Now they requested permission before entering human space. Now they treated human vessels with caution and courtesy. Jisoo found him there, staring at the stars. Having second thoughts? She asked. Just thinking about my sister. She would have hated this. She believed in peace, real peace, not peace enforced by fear. Maybe someday we'll have that kind of peace. Jisoo stood beside him. But first, the galaxy needed to learn that cruelty has consequences. Your sister's peace between equals who respect each other, that comes later. After they stop seeing us as victims, do they see us that way now, as equals? No, they see us as dangerous, as unpredictable, as a species that would rather destroy itself than accept unfair treatment. She smiled slightly. It's not respect, but it's close enough for now. The next day, the council held its first vote under the new rules. A minor species barely contacted with only 3 colony worlds had asked for protection from a larger neighbor. Under the old rules, this request would have been used to exploit them, to demand tribute in exchange for safety that would never come. Under the new rules, the vote was different. Species looked at the human platform before casting their decisions. They thought about what might happen if they chose wrong. The minor species received protection, real protection, with no strings attached. Do-Yan watched their ambassador weep with relief and wondered if this was what victory felt like. High Arbiter Velith, still in power but diminished, approached the human delegation after the vote. I never thought I would see this day, he said quietly. A fair decision in this chamber. It's made because it was right, not because it was profitable. Don't give us too much credit, Jisoo replied. They voted fairly because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't. Perhaps, but fear can become habit. Habit can become culture. Culture can become belief. Velith met her eyes. You've changed the galaxy, Ambassador. Whether the galaxy thanks you for it remains to be seen. He walked away, leaving Jisoo with thoughts she rarely allowed herself to have. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe this new order would work. Maybe species would eventually treat each other fairly because they wanted to, not because they were afraid. Or maybe humanity would have to teach this lesson again someday. Maybe fear was the only language the galaxy truly understood. Either way, humans were ready. The final scene came months later. At a small ceremony aboard the unyielding Dawn, Yuna, fully recovered, was being decorated for her service. She stood at attention while Doyen pinned a medal to her uniform. Afterward, she asked him the question that had been bothering her since her capture. "Do you think the galaxy will ever really trust us for everything we did?" Doyen thought about his sister, about the memorial wall, about all the years of humiliation that had led to this moment. Trust, no. But they will never mistake our kindness for weakness again. And sometimes he looked out at the stars. At a galaxy forever changed by human stubbornness and rage and refusal to accept defeat, sometimes that's enough. The unyielding Dawn turned toward Earth. The war was over. The lesson was taught. And humanity had finally found its place in the universe, not through diplomacy, not through patience, through the simple, terrible truth that some species would rather burn than bow. The galaxy would never forget. That was the whole point.